Hello and welcome to my video for CSGO. This is, as you can see, this is my game, Connect 4. You can see in the background this is my game of Connect 4. Of course you probably know what Connect 4 is, but it's obviously a game of strategy where you have to think ahead of your opponent and get 4 of your coloured circles, well squares in my case, in a row to win, either diagonally, vertically or horizontally, and the game will reset automatically once someone wins. So in this video I'll be answering 4 key questions which involve the efficiency of my code, the problem solving that I had to do during this project, my professionalism and my performance overall. When first starting my project I knew that I wanted to do it in 2D. This is mainly because it's a lot easier to do in 2D and for the same exact game, same logic. So to do this, I created a new 2D project in Unreal Engine by selecting an empty space and ensured that I had the correct settings for my 2D game. Once I had created my space, I decided that I would use widgets to complete my game. So the first thing I had to do was create a widget for my game board. Of course, Connect 4 has a grid of 7x6 in a grid layout. Each individual circle on the grid on the 7x6 grid represents a slot where the player can drop their square token into. Then I had to make clickable buttons that allows the user to drop their circle into. I assigned each circle slot with an X and Y value equaling to 7 across the bottom and 6 going up. Of course I had to make my buttons, as you can see here. They're separated into classes to make it easier. This is my main page of where I've put all my widgets together. As you can see, they're all in one big section. They'll disappear if you press that. There's obviously classes for the different features within this whole group. The title, the play again button, all the individual buttons, the actual grid itself, all into one, all named appropriately so they can be called on upon later. Right, I only got 10 minutes, so let's get into the bulk of the code. As you can see, this is the majority of the code for the Connect 4 game. Let's start from left to right just to make it easier. I've added comments on most of the functions. Right, let's first go over the conditioning in order for someone to win or lose the game. So on the far right there's the first, well overall there's 4 conditions. There's either diagonal, horizontal or vertically, and of course win. The first condition here on the left is the left right tiles, which of course will try and detect if there's 4 tiles in a left to right pattern. Of course if this is false it will move on to the next section, which is vertical, and we'll do the exact same thing. See whether there's more than 3 tiles that go up and or down. And of course if this is not met it will go do the exact same thing for diagonal. And finally I've added a condition where if the board is full and there's no clear match, then the game will result in a tie. And of course if it's not full it will just go to the next player's turn. So the way that you distinguish between 2 players in my Connect 4 game is by the colour. There's orange and blue. This game is designed to be used on one computer with one mouse and keyboard, so obviously it's important to distinguish whose turn it is next, and the easiest way by doing this is using colour. This section on the right is how I made alternating colours for when it's someone's turn. On the right you can see that in order to change colour we don't actually change the colour. All we do is access the HSV values and change it so that it's the same colour, just darker. Of course we change the colour and opacity. And of course this is all linking back to the image widget, which is the just plain square, which will change colour. Also I've added the function which doesn't just change the colour of the squares, it also changes the colour of the text and the buttons at the bottom. So at the bottom here is a condition for whether there's going to be a tie to the game or not. So of course if it's false the game and there isn't a tie, the game will continue, or if someone wins they win. If not and the board is full, completely full and no one can win, the game will say it's a tie and it will give the user the ability to start the game again. Of course, if any of the conditions are met, the game will end, there'll be a winner, and of course it will select which colour, which player won, and give them the result. There is another section of course, which allows me to animate the board, show very quickly just so I fit in the timescale. Very quickly, this bit on the right allows the user to not only have one turn, but many turns after that. This next bit is where it allows once the button is pressed, it will spawn the circle square on top, which will fall down into place. And of course this section on the right is where I've coded each individual button to actually work. This section I just showed off is contained within a larger blueprint, which I will show now. This top section here just ensures that every time there's a turn and a button's pressed, something will happen, and happen correctly. This section here takes the Y positioning depending on what column the user used. Then this calculates the number of slots it needs to move down by depending on how many tiles have already been stacked up. To get how far down we go, we multiply by 128 because each column is 128 units. Once we've got this number, we convert it from an integer to a float value just to make it easier down the line. Then we get the starting Y position so we can snap the tile into its final position. This section keeps track of how far the tile has moved using X and Y. As it only moves up and down, Y is more important. If a tile has moved more than it's supposed to be, this section will correct the tile position. I've added a delay so it's a more clean movement rather than an instant falling down of the tile. The tile has been snapped into place during the turn. It will run the checkboard sequence and the outcome will follow. There are a couple more blueprints, but if I want this video to get 10 minutes I won't be able to show them. So let's move on to the 4 talking points of this video. So starting off with the efficiency of my code, I would say I've been fairly efficient. There's probably corners that I probably could have cut somewhere to make it quicker, but Connect 4 is a pretty well-known game, so the rules and logic of it is in my brain already, so that made it sort of easy to fill in the gaps if something I didn't know. One way that in this project I increased my efficiency was definitely the use of widgets, as I could have assigned each individual tile and section in blueprints. That would have taken forever. So using widgets really sped up my process. Another way I think I increased my efficiency was copying code, to be honest, because I could have written the code out 7 times for each button, every single little tile, but just simply copying and pasting and duplicating code just saves time and effort. Well, the obvious advantage of these things is that it saves time, because allows me to allocate more of my time to harder things in this project. The efficiency of the code takes up less storage, less space. But there are also problems with this, as in using widgets. It probably appears more almost childlike, a bit bland, a bit boring. It probably could have been spiced up if I didn't use widgets, allowed for more effects, but I was mainly focused on the code. Finally, another thing that was successful in my efficiency of my code was the use of inheritance. Of course, making parent and child classes allows for code reusability, as each class can sort of take properties from each parent class and just duplicate it and make it reusable instead of having to make a brand new one. Now let's move on to the problem solving section. I would say one problem I had was probably trying to make functions that would check for win conditions. It sounds easy, but it's harder than you think. Just making sure everything's in order and everything's connected to the right place is difficult. Of course, a way around this is the fact that I know how to win a game of Connect 4, I guess. It's that simple. Just using a bit of common sense really does help. Another problem which I did have, which I didn't end up solving, was trying to make the game multiplayer, to be honest, against an AI. I did look into it, I did attempt some things, but the complexity of it just proved too challenging for me. And to be honest, this game wouldn't be used for anything else apart from this module. So being able to play it on a computer with 2 people sitting there, perfectly fine. In terms of improving for next time, as in trying to identify problems before they happen, I guess now I've done it, the best way to improve it is, before starting to code or coming up with an idea, identify problems that may occur during the project, because there are a lot of problems that do occur. Maybe make a table, a list of problems, add a section of how to solve it, and to be honest, hope it doesn't happen. Now onto professionalism. The best way to make my code look professional is, I guess, make it tidy. Have consistent formatting, follow a consistent coding style throughout my whole project, and have a sort of modular design, break it down into clear what does what. Also adding comments and documentation, as you probably saw on my piece, is quite important, because sometimes you forget what things do. Also constant testing, making sure it actually works, and it works to a high standard, and it works the way that you want it to work, just to ensure the quality is to a high standard. I think a good way to improve my professionalism moving forward is probably to avoid duplicating my code. I know I talked about it earlier, making it more efficient, but in a professional setting, you don't want to see that. You want to find a way to avoid duplicating code, make the code clean and the code more precise and more compact, instead of having a bunch of clutter on the screen. Also, probably another way I could probably improve my professionalism is my error handling. Often if I find an error, I would either give up or spend hours trying to figure out what to do and how to fix it instead of carrying on with the rest of my code. In terms of my performance as a whole on this module, I feel like it was a success. Definitely learned a lot of stuff. As someone who's done it before a little bit, I definitely learned new things, new skills, new ways to increase my productivity and efficiency. My attitude to study, I often put more effort into things I enjoy, and I enjoy this. So hopefully that was reflected within the project. In terms of 200 hours, if you're talking the whole module, in every task that we were set, maybe. In terms of the project, probably around 50. I probably could have managed my time better, get things done, set deadlines, and meet deadlines that I had made for myself, because I know sometimes I didn't. Same artifact was ambitious. I know it's a simple idea, but it is a hard execution. I feel like I did achieve what I set out to do and did it well in the end. I could have definitely improved. I probably could have made a 3D version, added more detail, added more functions, added more maybe levels. I know it's Connect 4, but something. But on the whole, I think it was a success and I enjoyed it.